Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to our reaction and review for Nine Perfect Strangers Season 2, Episode 5. This is one of those instances where we have to say we hate because we care, because this episode was bad. And the other problem with this episode being bad, and this is actually the thing I'm the most worried about, I feel like they really thought they had a banger here. I feel like they thought this was going to be this big, special, all important episode that was going to reverberate through the ages.
This episode was so bad. Everybody put on your hard hats. This is going to be a very different video because this is a show. I have made it no secret how much I love the first season. I've watched it multiple times and it's good every single time. This season has been really hit and miss. It's got a really good cast that I feel like they're just not focusing in on the show the way they did the first season, where it was kind of more about the stories. And here it's like, yeah, there's some about the stories, like the Sister Agnes story was really good, but then they're just kind of being wacky to be wacky to make everybody feel like they're part of the trip or whatever. But it's not working. Like, this season isn't working the way that it should be. And then they did this episode where they completely take you away from the cast of characters you're involved with to have basically a flashback episode of something that just doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter who Tatiana's father is or was. What mattered was Masha and her daughter and her losing her daughter. The father wasn't part of the life, so it doesn't really matter. Why are we supposed to care about this?
To me, it feels like right now this season peaked in episode 2 with Brian and everything that we got there, and it's all just been kind of like a slow drip down ever since. And this episode in particular, it frustrates me because I'm really worried the show thinks that we're most invested from Masha, and that's the reason why this show is good. And to me, it's just like Masha is sort of the means to an end. Like, we're here because we're getting invested and interested in all of these other characters who are sort of around her, and whether or not she can change them or whether they're going to rise up against her. It's like those dynamics are the thing that's really, really interesting. It's just, I don't care about Masha's personal life. I don't care about this relationship that she formed, everything with Tatiana. I understand that this is still a means to an end for her to some extent, but it's just that for a show that does not have that many episodes, that we're going to take a full episode away from these other characters that I'm becoming more progressively interested in, and then go on this complete detour. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, it took me out of the show in a way that hasn't ever happened with this show before. The first season was really about the people that were there. Yeah, Masha was there and she was dealing with her own stuff, but it was always about the people that are there, the families, the couples, the singles, everyone that was there. And here, it has felt like it's more about Martin, it's more about Masha, it's more about the business side of things. And that isn't what makes the show as special as it is. It's like White Lotus, where you're there and you're learning about the people that are at the resort. It's less about the people running the resort. It's more about the people at the resort and what is going on. And that's why season 1 was so good. And they are losing the script here on this one.
Yeah, well, we're going to try to break down the reasons why this did not work, like what we actually did learn, if it's going to be relevant moving forward this season. But before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because we will continue to be here with everything Nine Perfect Strangers Season 2, and fingers crossed it all goes uphill after this episode. But we're also gearing up for some really big stuff this summer in between Dexter Resurrection, Alien Earth, so much more coming your way. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed. That does help us here immensely.
Absolutely. It really does help us. And also over on our Patreon, we're covering Murderbot right now, as well as Criminal Minds Evolution. If you want to check out those weekly reviews, it's the only place that you're able to get them, and it helps support us here as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. We very, very much appreciate that.
Okay, let's get into why this episode was so crap. And the biggest
Yeah.
reason is that it has taken us away from everything that they've established with the group of people that they are focused on. They have made this episode about Masha, and they have undone a story that was very powerful in the first season, where it was like she was with her daughter, this horrible accident happened, and the idea that tragedy can strike at any time and that accidents do happen, things that are out of your control. That was really powerful. And I think that was really relatable to a lot of people that have lost somebody due to an accident. And now here we are, where it's like, it's not an accident. It's all spy craft. And this was on purpose. And all of a sudden, I'm like in another show where I'm just like, she's like, following David around years later and had this confrontation as a journalist with this bad guy who ran over her daughter later, and she was in hiding. I'm like, what is this story? Like, this story doesn't feel relatable at all. Nobody has all this spycraft stuff going on where they're like targeting people's families, and this is like made up TV stuff. So why is it part of this?
It's a very weird retconning, and it's just something that it made me at one point be like, is Masha just making all this up? It's like, is this story legit? But I don't think that's the case. But it was just something where I started to go crazy while watching it, because I just didn't understand why they would take away something that was interesting in season one and then suddenly attach it to all these other circumstances of Masha's past and a part of her life that we neither knew about or cared about. And I'm still not incentivized to know or care about it now, because like the details are so sketchy. This is a really short episode. You don't really have a lot of time other than just, oh, I started digging into some of the people that David was around, and oh, some of these people feel like they're not great people. It's like, okay, great, but I'm supposed to care that like they were involved in all this involving your daughter now?
Yeah, that's the thing about this, where it's like I'm already having trouble with Masha and David having no chemistry. They don't. They don't now in the present. They didn't in the past. So watching this like kind of one night stand love story come together, where they were together this one time and they had this night out and drinking and fun and whatever, and the necklace, I was just like, I don't care about it, because there's no chemistry here. They've had love stories on this show in season one that were like a 10 out of 10, coming together, took their time, nice and slow ride, that by the time you get to, that dinner date in season one, you're like, oh, my heart. Like, I can't even stand it. I love love. But here, it just didn't work out. There was no chemistry with these two. It wasn't really a love story. It was kind of this one night. And then, like, all this blame on David for not being there, because she sent him some letters, she sent him some threats. He's this really big, powerful guy that, of course, has people opening his mail and
Yeah.
deciding what he sees. He doesn't have time for that day to day. And while she may not understand that, she puts so much blame on him for so much of it, where she never told him that she was pregnant, that there was this kid. He never had an opportunity to actually make a choice. Yeah, I'd like to be there. She had an opportunity years later when he came back to Prague, and she saw him, and she didn't even go over and be like, hey, why didn't you return my letters? Hey, there's this kid. Hey, give him a chance.
Yeah, it felt like she was just trying in this episode to guilt him in all these other ways, because she clearly wants something out of him, whether it's money, whether it is more respect and understanding for what it is that she's doing. And it just all felt, because there was that agenda to it, that I couldn't really buy or get into anything, because nothing felt genuine. It was just like, okay, I'm going to make this guy feel as bad as possible for everything that's happened, even though I had an opportunity to tell him. I understand it's difficult. I understand there might be people opening his letters, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But it's like, you're really going to blame him for something that he never knew about, that he never really had an opportunity to know about. He was probably with other people around that time too. And it's just like, you're in a situation where you're asking him to remember all these finer details. It just frustrated me because it all felt so shallow.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was this is how Masha really felt all this time about the past, that she just she's basically blaming him for their daughter dying, that
Yes.
all of this is because of choices he couldn't make because he didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Or is this her making it be like that so that he can experience someone else's memories, because that's basically what's happening, whether these memories are true or not. He's experiencing her memories and her life of what happened with Tatiana so that he will feel guilty, he will be manipulated, because for me a lot of this is about money. They are in trouble financially.
Yeah.
She does need money to move it forward. I said this in the last review. I feel like he was going to have an experience that was going to be so personal to him that he was going to be like, let me pay for this, which is
Yeah.
exactly where it ended up, where he was like, oh man, like I'd like to meet this daughter. Oh, this daughter is gone. This experience was so personal to me and so touching to me. I am willing to do anything at this point to make sure that other people get this experience. And I didn't need 38 minutes to be on this ride to get there with David.
Yeah, there's some stuff that you mentioned in there that I think is really interesting. Like this idea of, okay, we have this real moral ambiguity here as to why is Masha framing things in the way in which she is. Like, is she legitimately blaming him for everything? Are we meant to believe that? Is she just trying
Mix
to?
of lies and truth.
Yeah, like there's something there that could have been a very effective episode if a lot of the finer details had been just more interesting along the way, whether it be how they met, whether it be that she could have gotten into contact with them, whether it be all this sudden spycraft, or even just the other part of Masha's backstory that's really, really bothering me is just that she would seemingly wasn't really into this stuff that, you know, she's into now that much so long ago. And it kind of just feels like the amount of work that she's done here when it comes to recreating and reliving memory, this is like some Dr. Frankenstein level stuff. This is something that you probably need to devote like 4 decades of your life in order to figure out. And now they're kind of trying to make me buy into this idea that, okay, this is something that Masha has kind of figured out more in the later years since leaving Tatiana. I mean, since losing Tatiana, now I'm just sitting here being like, is that really enough time? Like, is that something that she's just going to constantly like transfer her life over in this sort of way? It just doesn't gel for me.
Like, I understand it was like a different lifetime ago and everything, but
Yeah.
like if you're gonna give me backstory, let me know why she's changed her name to Masha, because it was apparently Mila back in the
Yeah.
day when she was like miking him up and they were out dancing and drinking and having a McDonald's at the bar. And I was just like, who is Mila? Like, I don't understand. Is this
Yeah.
part of changing into Masha? Like, is Masha just all just kind of a lie that you've put together since losing your daughter so that you can kind of be this new guru and people can't look up your past? Those details needed to be there. I didn't need to watch 20 minutes of dancing, drinking, and McDonald's.
I think it's a situation here where if you're going to do something with Masha, this character, you either need to have an amazing backstory, like one of the most interesting backstories ever, or you need to have no backstory and just have her be a continuous mystery.
I love that.
Yeah, like that was really interesting in season 1, and that was interesting in the start of season 2 as well, where you don't really understand this person's motives. All you really understand is that she's had this daughter that she lost, and it's like, okay, that's enough. And that's where we get to once again that fundamental, I think, misunderstanding that the people behind the scenes here think that we care about Masha's backstory when really we don't. We care about what she's doing to people right now in the present. Like it's the same sort of issue that I think fundamentally is there with various iterations, ironically, of the Joker, where it's just like sometimes you don't need a backstory for somebody. It's just what they're doing in the present is interesting enough.
I think the issue is that they have Nicole Kidman, and I
Yeah.
know she's in everything right now, but she's also a massive star. So
Yes.
it feels like they're like, oh, well, we have to give more time to Nicole Kidman this season. Like maybe we weren't able to last season because it was based on source material and Masha only had how much Masha had, but now we can do whatever we want. So we're going to give her a whole bunch more story where it's kind of like, well, you could have done that without this episode at all. You could have just cut out Martin altogether. We don't need Martin. We can have Masha leading these groups and
Yeah.
getting everything together like she did in season 1, where she was fully involved in that season and fully involved with the progress with all of the patients that were there. But that's not happening this season. She's just sitting behind a camera watching Martin flop around. And then now we're having a whole episode of Masha that didn't bring the story anywhere until the end, when they decided to just set on fire the whole story they had in season 1 about the
Yeah.
daughter, where all of a sudden it's all this spy craft that just takes us out of that. This could really be happening. They could
Yeah.
really have this type of stuff going on, but then all of a sudden, spies.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you also have to drop on here that, oh, Martin is watching the two of you. It's like, okay, who cares? Like, it's just like, that's an ending, I guess, that you can carry forward into something.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Martin already knew
Yeah.
that Masha's not supposed to be drinking the tea, but she is. She's obviously not supposed to be hooking up with the clients, but she is. Is any of that going to actually stop the big boss from bringing Masha in? No.
Yeah, that's the big issue. That's why it's hard to really see that ending and get really excited about it. But, in going back to this idea of, okay, Nicole Kidman, yeah, you are the star of this show. Yeah, you do a million things, but I feel like you, more than almost anybody, should know that sometimes less can be more. Because basically, for those of you who have watched Lioness, Nicole Kidman's entire arc on Lioness is, I'm going to sit in this one office, I'm going to use an unusual accent, and I'm going to yell at some people. And that's basically all she does over the course of a given season. And sometimes she really cooks with that. And it's like, you don't need a full episode for Masha to be interesting. You just need good relationships with other characters, and you've got a really good cast around her this season, and you can lean a little bit more into that than rather than, okay, doing what feels like a stunt episode here, or what feels like a crazy dance sequence that you've devised hoping that it'll go off on TikTok and become really, really popular, when it's just like, have more faith in what it is that you actually have.
Yeah, take that magic from season 1, where Masha's actually involved with all of her clients and is working through things for herself, using her clients to get there. That's not really happening this season. She's using David, but
Yeah.
she's brought everybody there to just use one person. She's not really involved in anything.
One thing I will say that's mildly interesting is, does every single character at this retreat have some sort of history with Brian at this point? Because it's curious how
Yeah.
many times we've seen people watch the Crabapple Club. I don't know if they're going anywhere with that, or if there's something where they actually feel like he's going to be the real guide to their happiness, because he was when they were children. But it's just something that's kind of come up in a way that it hasn't for some other characters.
Yeah, it's come up a lot. And I mean, to be fair, yeah, there are certain, all the kids are watching Miss Rachel or Coco Melon or whatever. So, yeah, everyone would be connected to that in some kind of way. And that stuff is global, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But why in that moment did we need to see her daughter watching, Brian? Like, is it really that important?
And that's where, once again, we get back to the central question at the heart of this episode. Was any of it important? Did we need this for the ending that we're going to get to this season? Which, to me, is all about, can these people who have come to this retreat actually find a way to get better? And I don't know how Masha putting David through this means anything when it comes to how people like Imogen or Brian or these other characters. It just feels like, how can Masha make Masha better? And that's by getting this money.
Yes, because that's what it feels like. This whole thing was a manipulation to get him to have the experience where he then would make the decision himself about the money, that she never actually asked him for it, that he had the experience and was like, I want other people to experience this as well. How do we make that happen? Because he is the only person right now who didn't just drink the tea, who actually had the device that releases the medication into you, where you can have more focused memories, and you can actually share someone else's memories, which is interesting. And no one else has been part of that yet. Everything else for everyone else feels like season 1 stuff.
The biggest thing that bums me out is that this is not a particularly long show. Like, we only have a small handful of episodes left. at this point, if this was a 14 or 15 episode season, I would probably tolerate this episode a little bit more than I do, because I'm like, okay, you need to have a little bit of filler in here. That's fine. I have a lot more on the other side, but this is not the pit. This is Nine Perfect Strangers. We do not have very much left, and we spent a lot of time on this.
This was not needed. This is like having a vampire store that's only open during the day. It was absolutely not needed. Nobody needs this. And it actually hurt some of the stuff that they did in season 1.
All right, well, let's turn this over to you guys. Do you feel the same as us about this episode? Do you disagree? And if so, why do you disagree? Like, what did you like about this episode? Like, I'm really honestly, genuinely curious. So just let us know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss other coverage. And yeah, support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description, and we are covering there exclusively Criminal Minds Evolution and Murderbot. Thank you so much. We'll see you here next time.